Hello and welcome to Heck Knows. I'm your host Heck and I know. DC's The Flash is hitting theaters this June, and in this video I'm going to give you the scoop on all the crazy stuff that has been going on with that movie and talk about the massive changes that have gone down behind the scenes at DC Studios. Let's start things off with The Flash. There's been a ton of good buzz about the quality of the movie, the latest trailer looks great, and it features the return of the legendary Michael Keaton as Batman.
I'm Batman.
But even with all that factored in, I am still just finding it really difficult to get excited about it, and I think it has to do with a few things. First and foremost, I'm just not that big of a Flash guy. It's never been a character that I've really connected with despite being pretty fast myself. Another thing that has dwindled my hype severely is that a Flash movie has been brewing and stewing in development for what feels like forever. I remember back in the early 2000s, Vancouver's own Ryan Reynolds was interested in playing the Flash in a movie that didn't end up happening. He of course went on to star in some questionable superhero movies before eventually finding his mojo in his second time around with Deadpool. A few years after that, Mad Max and Happy Feet director Ezra Miller was planning a Justice League movie and had cast OG Adam Brody as the Flash, but that project also never took off and was eventually scrapped. It wasn't until Zack Snyder came into the picture and got the ball rolling that the Flash did finally get his first live-action appearance on the big screen in 2016's awful Batman v Superman movie. So yeah, it was a tough start for the Flash, and it didn't get much better from there, as he had a much bigger role in the Justice League movie that, no matter which way you cut it, was also a stinker. So the Flash has been trying to get his own solo movie for a long time, and even this upcoming film has been in development since 2014, going through a handful of directors before eventually landing on IT director Andy Muschietti all the way back in 2019. Since then, it's had some setbacks with COVID, of course, and was pushed back even further to allow for reshoots and more time for the visual effects team to work on it. So these lengthy delays, mixed with the poor quality of some of the recent DC films, has had me feeling somewhat skeptical about this new movie. And I haven't even touched on the whole Ezra Miller situation yet. Miller has been in the news recently for some weird and troubling reasons, and I don't want to get into what they did specifically, but I will say that it was bad enough that it caused the studio to threaten either recasting Miller in all future DC films, or just straight up canceling the Flash movie altogether unless Miller issued a public apology and sought professional help. Now, all this may seem like a bluff or a scare tactic from the studio because there's no way they would actually cancel a $200 million budget movie, right? Well, the answer to that became a lot less clear when Warner Bros. Canceled their $90 million budget Batgirl movie last year, which had already been filmed, by the way. So Ezra Miller did end up apologizing and is now allegedly seeking help for complex mental health issues. Going back to that canceled Batgirl movie I mentioned, here's a quote from one of the co-chairpersons of DC Studios, Peter Safran, who said that that movie was not releasable, which basically means that it was such a disaster that it would have harmed the brand and the reputation of the people involved had it been released. Pretty crazy stuff. And I bring up the name Peter Safran because he is one of the newly appointed co-CEOs of DC Studios, alongside a fellow by the name of James Gunn.
Hey everybody, I'm James Gunn. I'm the co-CEO of DC Studios.
Gunn, of course, has plenty of superhero experience, having both written and directed the most recent Suicide Squad film for DC, as well as the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Volume 3 in that franchise is coming out later this year and will be his final film for Marvel as he focuses on building this new DC universe. Speaking of which, Gunn recently revealed DC's slate of upcoming projects, which include a new Superman movie that he is currently writing and potentially directing and which will not feature Henry Cavill, a Batman and Robin movie called The Brave and the Bold based off a run of comics by the same name, which I am super excited about, a Supergirl movie, a Green Lantern TV series that is described as a dark mystery inspired by True Detective, which is very intriguing, a Game of Thrones style Wonder Woman TV series, and a Swamp Thing horror movie. And those are just the projects featuring more well-known DC characters. A bunch of other projects were also announced with characters that I've never even heard of, but they will all exist within this new universe that Gunn and Safran are creating. While things like the Batman Part 2, as well as the Joker sequel with Lady Gaga, are still being made as separate standalone DC Elseworlds movies. This new change in leadership took place after this year's DC projects were already underway, so I'm not exactly sure how this Flash movie or the upcoming Shazam and Aquaman sequels will tie into things, but it does kind of make the Flash feel less significant in the grand scheme of things, despite Gunn saying that the Flash is one of the best superhero movies he's ever seen. I'm hoping that this praise from him is genuine and not just damage control, but as I said earlier, the latest trailer does admittedly look pretty great. I myself am a huge fan of this switch up from DC, and I trust Gunn's vision as he has proven with Guardians of the Galaxy that he can take relatively obscure characters and turn them into stars, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do with all his creative control. I'm also hoping this kind of makes Marvel step up their game, as we've seen some pretty lackluster entries from them post-Endgame. Regardless, I think the biggest winner of all this will be the fans, and that's what it's all about. What do you think? Are you excited for The Flash, or are you more like me and are much more excited about the fact that DC is kind of just letting James Gunn cook here? As always, thanks so much for watching. Go check out my channel for more videos like this, including a breakdown of the latest Transformers Rise of the Beast trailer, as well as part 1 of my 23 most anticipated movies of 2023. Thanks again, and see you later.